Welcome back. Good afternoon, folks. There it is. Do I need to say more? There it is. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's the confirmation we're looking for. We can sit here and we can have a biased all we want, but if the price doesn't actually back up what we're trying to do, then it doesn't really matter, does it? This is where, when we begin our discussion we build a bit of a hypothesis of going into a longer term setting and to hold through pullbacks. So when this move gets started here, to through the entire move continue to have a confidence to push that position with an understanding that even if it does continue to pull back a little bit here, we have a long enough position that we can continue to push through it, but that we're actually betting on for price to continue this trend that we're on. This sort of price action, it shows how healthy it is and how well it suits the bid to come in here. This wasn't extra demand. It really wasn't that much extra demand. It was just more than what we had here. Obviously, that's a really simple statement, but in the sense that for this trend to continue, you do need some price action to allow bid to come into the market, and that's what we got. We really didn't get that much of an inflow. It just counteracted the seemingly outflow that we got here, but the amount of buying that we got here erases any of the loss here and puts us right back onto the trend. But it sets us up very nicely because, again, what's happening here is that with our long-term position, and you guys see it in your positions as well, is that with your long-term position here, you're not losing as many points here as you're gaining here. So when this is pulling back, the amount of percents that you're losing on your long-term options are not equal to the amount that you gained here. So even though the underlying is equal, you should have gained more today on your options to how much you lost in the last 2 days. And that's really the benefit of a long-term trade, whereas it would be the opposite, right? It would be the opposite with the short-term trade. Because with the short-term trade, you're not just losing the value, you're losing the time, right? You're losing tempo, and you have to catch it back up the tempo. This would only equal that, right? It would only equal the value, but not the tempo loss. And so this is where the long-term trade really comes in, where none of this means anything. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. Today really doesn't matter in terms of a trend, other than confirming that we're still on a trend, right? Which is, of course, what we're looking for. And then also in our most recent additions, right, in the last day or two, or really just this week to finish off the port, we have some great numbers today. Looking at sort of let's go first around, and then we'll go look at some of the others. So growth, which got negatively affected the most, didn't put as many points on as well. Value really had its day again today with the Dow. Just again, I mean, the value trade, they're just really the ones taking off. The funniest part really being small caps, showing you how drastic this move is, but then how drastic it equalizes. We'll see what this looks like tomorrow. Again, there's a lot of supply here. I already did not like the way that moved, and we talked a little bit of how it's rough around the edges. And we don't really use it as a benchmark, but it is something we're interested to get involved with. Let's go over to actual individual positions and take a look. I want to mention how this Myrna position played out. Now, again, a lot of different things can happen from here. And whether or not that you should take profit, but you can't guess tops, right? And we're trying to push a position for a long term here. So what do? Well, you hold through this pullback because, again, this rally that it was on was significant compared to the trend that you expect. And so when you get this sort of -5 and then -3, it feels like you need to get out of that position. Today, really solidifying another 8% here. Now, you're just back up to the high here, but that's not what we're trading for. We're trading for way out here, right? We're trading for more points. And so, again, it's easy to say in hindsight, but that's why through the moment, I'm trying to give some confidence there to hold through that position, maybe trying to convince you while convincing myself to hold the position. I feel good about it, right? And it feels good. It's one thing to It's one thing to take profit because you're not sure, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it always feels good. It always feels good to be able to push through it, and then look at it and say, hey, that's exactly what we do it for, right? And really, this trade and some of the others that we're going to look at is because of the bias we have in the market, and that's where everything I've been talking about, using that bias to push yourself a little bit further right now, because we understand where the market is really helpful because again, if you get pushed out of these positions, getting in them and then missing a day like today or missing the week before or the week before that, it really does hurt. It hurts because it's very hard to then find a way to get into the market and manage that trade because again, imagine if you bought up near the high here somewhere and you didn't buy below this low. How did you manage this trade? You didn't. You had to get out. And then how did you get back in? You didn't. It'd be very hard to get back in. And so that's again where we need to be taking advantage of every moment we have. And as I say that, that's just like buying travel at the low here. This is not an easy trade. And listen, you don't capture these trades. There's no fault with that. Again, this is if you're fully positioned and then you have cash to do these type of things, it pays off to have cash and to have capital. It sucks if you don't. That's just the reality. So you can't take risks like this if you don't have a portfolio to back it up. And so these sort of trades here, this is what we make these trades for, right? This is what we make these trades for. I don't even so much care about the candle here today. It's what it signifies for what's to come here is what I care about. And so this could come back down tomorrow and I get stopped out. I'm not gonna obviously. This is not a gain. This is paper. It's a paper gain. We'll see where we get over here. When we look across the board, most travel did pretty damn well. We have earnings all over the place. It was really just UAL yesterday that kind of blew up the whole thing and actually gave us these low chances, which is great. That's the whole part of earnings that is actually pays off, is that you get some of these things that blow up price, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter. It gets priced in, and then we can go trade from there. We got kind of a gift here again, a gift here on the travel side. But again, we'll see how these finish up the week. We have 2 more days here. I mean, there's a lot of time left in this week. We have a lot of earnings still to go, and I think most of the volatility is already getting out of the way, considering that these are mostly at lows. So I do like the entry point, and we'll see how it goes from there, right? If that's our low, or if not. Same with the Tesla trade. This low trade 2 days ago on Tesla, we talked about how yesterday it actually was strong compared to the other growth tickers. A lot of the growth tickers actually either got all the way back to the low or posted lower lows, which meant we got stopped out of a lot of positions and had to re-enter them yesterday. Today, this opened lower in a seemingly similar way to those other growth tickers, but it then gets this bid, and I saw some of you guys talking about it. It always feels nice to get this trade here and to say, okay, we got our low trade on Tesla, and we don't have to worry about it. And I talked about this earlier. It was that for this trade, for me to be comfortable, I'd want 5%. There you go. Well, let's put it from the 700. That's your 5%. We got a little over 5%, right? Now it's only, again, we get another 2 days here to go till earnings. As long as we're up 5% going into earnings, I feel completely comfortable to be able to push this further through earnings. And then again, really what you want here is to be able to push this further and further and push it till all-time high or something, right? Whatever the price is going to be, that would be nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice if that's our low entry. Obviously, it's a different story from over here, which if somebody bought a 3-month option from over here and you're still in that position, then God love you. I don't know how you do it, but how do you sleep at night? But that's great if you did. I find it very unlikely. Again, find it very unlikely that everyone that made trades from here, nobody held all of that. It didn't happen. Okay, it didn't happen. So, and that's why the price was right over here, because no one was in those trades yet. That's the reality. The only way we get the prices that we got on this candle on all those growth tickers is because no one was in those trades yet. Everyone was trading for the moment. Now we're trading for the next, right? And so That's what made the trade nice here. And again, you're gaining a lot more than the underlying overall. Let me bring it over to semiconductors now. This here as well. This it begs it begs the quote I was saying earlier of the best day to enter was yesterday. I said that all week so far, right? The best day to enter is yesterday. We've sort of used that quote and that idea basically all this week to buy on low. Again, we don't know what the low is, but we're basically trying to capture whatever the hell it's going to be. Got stopped out twice on those growth trades. Very similar to how we get stopped out over here, right? When we get the 25th trades on the growth overall, we get stopped out multiple times before we got the actual move. The same thing again, it's always the same, and you can use that practice and that ability to be able to do this. And again, if this is our low point, then we're in a great spot for semiconductors. When you put into perspective with NVIDIA is really the ticker that we've done the best on an individual ticker basis for semis. If this is the low point of this pullback, then we're going to be doing exceedingly well, I would say overall, because again, we've gained a lot of points from this move so far. And then if we again entering ETFs with like SMH to capture more less risk but a larger exposure over more time, right? Is definitely going to be nice, and that really rounds off the portfolio overall. When we look at sort of the lagging part of value, which is sort of the aerospace and defense. This is again because of how far ahead these got. This trade here, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I talked about it yesterday. It was not like the other tickers where we could put this trade on yesterday. I didn't feel comfortable putting it on yesterday. So today I talked about it from this open. I put it on. I don't feel that comfortable with this trade. So comparatively, it's just not moving. It's not moving in the same way. And again, I think I was kind of, some of you maybe thought I was memeing, but I was using some of these big idea topics to translate where we are in sort of this cycle of aerospace and defense, and then we have like Biden pulling out of Afghanistan. These things, some of these things do add up to the sector, and it's hard to kind of gauge what exactly we're doing there. If we look at it overall, the overall is pretty good, and so we'll see how that translates. Again, BA is one example. The GE trade is a lot better. Specifically talking about BA. BA obviously it's less of the defense side, more of course selling fucking shitty planes. So we'll see. We'll see how that pans out. The thing is that the defense side through for instance the LMT trade has been doing very well. So you can see how earnings have had no effect here because there is nothing to talk about. So that's where this big idea focus comes in. This is, there's definitely a discussion that's warranted to have here again about sort of this side of things and how this move comes into fruition. And when we talk about aerospace and defense getting hot, and then you get this whole move here and how it's been doing so poorly, there's definitely discussions that we can have about that. And it's so long into the future though that it just kind of sneaks up on you. So we'll see, because again, we want to capture things over long term, and so this is not a trade that I'm going to need to put a new position on. So for instance, I've been in this trade for the defense, that aerospace and defense trade, but I'm going to be out of this position any day now. And so this is where the discussion comes. How do you put a new long-term trade on some of these ideas? Well, you would need a big macro idea. And so again, we'll see how some of these line up, but I think it is something we'll see for that sector anyways, because I think it is definitely an interesting sector. Where if we like compare it to healthcare, right? This healthcare move, we can feel very confident about this because of a lot of different macro reasons. And I mean, I've talked about this since a year ago already, that I was already prepared to go put these type of positions on with Anthem, UNH, right? This very much led into the Dow play, So we'll see about aerospace and defense, and because I think it's definitely something that it's it's very much a cycle trade and very much a political one and based on spending. And this is where I talked a lot about SpaceX and in the way in which that's getting so much government funding that it does rule out, like, think of 50 years ago, Lockheed was getting all of the funding from the government for fucking building SR-71s and building fucking everything, right? From when we were going from that, again, from like that point of view of we're building aircraft and then we're building all kinds of fucking defense shit and we're sort of the forefront of everything and then it kind of goes away, right? Now it's gone into the space side and it's going to SpaceX, which is private. So who's going to be the public company that gets funding? Is SpaceX it? And so that's where I'm trying to. It begs a question because the amount of money that we're spending right now, who's the one that's going to get the funding next? Just like on the industrial side, the amount of money that's getting spent over here has led to some very large moves, right? Not specifically X here today or something, but just in general, uh, we can see it and feel it, right? Like, look at these moves, right? It's all about government funding, and so that aerospace and defense, I do want to start to think about it more and more, and see, okay, who's getting the money? Who's going to get the money for a public company? So we'll think about that, and I would say that Lockheed so far, based on that price action, is, I'm sure if you go look at the senator or Congress list, the total Congress list, you can find out who's buying stocks where and find some of those, right? That might be a way to go. So we'll take a look at that. Overall, other tickers that continue to go, the EW move talked about from the open. I thought that was pretty cute here. Uh, whether or not we continue some of these larger moves from the top of the list, we'll see. If we go further into, I would say the more difficult question here of clean energy. Today is a start, right? Today is a start. I think I saw somebody mention plug earlier. Obviously, Tesla is sort of a different metric, but it's a part of it. We'll see if this is the start to some of these. I don't want to get baited, and I talked about it. I'm not going to get baited anymore. So I got baited multiple times, trying to take the low trade. Try to get something to work because, again, if you capture it from a low, then I mean, it gets pretty fucking easy. It's really easy to push that trade. This is just, it's not, I'm not in these positions. I'm not in the position. It's just not, right? ICLN is right back to here. This would be really the ETF I'd look at to use. It's still below the level. So whether or not there's a good way to play this, we're going to give it the rest of the week and we'll think about it. And again, it's not imperative. It's not a must trade. And I would say, again, in terms of the risk to put on, I prefer the China trade over that one for right now. I think it's a more in the now trade. The problem right now is that no one wants to buy things anymore, at least not at the moment, that are not going to see numbers for right now. These companies like that come up with fucking batteries that we may not see for 15 years or something, and we don't even know if they actually are making them. They're not getting numbers right now that we can see with inflation, and inflation only hurts them. So we want to see things like China, which is doing well economically. We want to see those numbers right now, which those numbers are coming. And so I'd rather put the bets on this side than the growth side of something that we don't know anything about, right? There's nothing inherent or intrinsic about it that's good. So there's just the promise of growth. So I would rather still to paint my focus this way. Whether or not these are actually going to make a move. I mean, we saw the price action already. I got stopped out. So we'll see again. Whether or not these trades get put on is the question, but I'd still prefer them over that clean energy side for now. So we'll see. Now, going into the next 2 days, we got the nice day today. It's going to be important to keep up our bias and our mentality. When we look at the way this is shaping up, we have the dollar coming back down. So we had this bid and attempt. We're going to be watching to see how this move comes down. And again, our reaction, if we get into all-time high again, I want to still find out, are we pulling the dollar down or is the dollar pulling us up, right? Which is which? We want to see volatility here as well. If this comes back down, then again, it begs a question of what is the point of having volatility in the first place? And so, again, this this here, I can understand from Monday that we had hedging. But if this falls back down, then it means the hedging is gone. Okay? So this is going to be an interesting question, because if the market sort of what we saw today with the bid that came in, a lot of that, if we put it into perspective, might be the hedging that was just put on just came off. And that's going to be a bit of a question, because if this comes down tomorrow and we get a move that's not equal sort of to yet today's move in terms of points, then that would put a lot of pressure on the idea that there's hedging at all, and which means that there could be more hedging to come again, which again, hedging will lead to pullbacks. That's just what will happen. And so we'll need to see where this is tomorrow. We'll see where it opens tomorrow, because if it does open lower, then I would basically say that the hedges are off, which again, it doesn't make sense. So that's the only thing that we actually can see right now in terms of volatility. You know, it, I'm gonna just assume it's gold. Okay, I'm just gonna assume it's gold, because again, no one put money into gold and now it's in gold. I'm just gonna assume this is the hedge. Okay, it's not a very good one. It's not a good assumption, but at the end of the day, you have to hedge your fucking portfolio somehow. You don't get to just keep buying and buying and then, oh well, it'll be good. The whole greater fool theory, right? The idea that there's always another fool that will come by after you, right? And then you find out that, usually that sentiment of, oh, I'll just keep buying because there's always another fool that will buy after me. Somebody will buy it, I can sell. And then you find out that no one else is willing to buy from you because you're the fool, right? That's how the market turns out. And I would have to imagine that we're past that, right? Institutions are past that. Let's just assume that this is them hedging this move right now. It lines up in terms of the date and in terms of the moves in general. Let's just call this move here an equal hedge to the market right now, to growth at least. Is there a hedge compared to value right now? I don't think so. And so this is again when growth started to break out, gold started to move, which would make sense because there is an assumption that gold is a good inflationary hedge, which is not technically true, but it's just because gold has always gone up in the past. So we just kind of assume that it's not technically true. It's like real estate doesn't technically always go up through inflation. So, okay, great. Great. You're just like throwing things together. Yeah, technically the market just always goes up too. So again, the cycling there doesn't always work. But if we put this in terms of hedging, then what we can then do is say, okay, if this continues, then that means there's an equal amount being bought on the growth side still, which we do see growth continuing here, right? And so that might be a good way to go forward, because it's important that we don't assign correlation, but that we try to find it still. And it's very hard in this market that we have no correlation to the dollar whatsoever. There is almost no correlation whatsoever to this, because it's so assumed. It's all assumed. And if you remember back, this was a lot easier when every single point of this going to the downside was equal to 1 point going up on the equity market. That made things so much easier. We're not really in that point right now. Yeah, it's similar, but we know we're not there right now. So if we can use some of these assumptions through gold, we already have some understanding through Bitcoin, right? That some of the demand is over here, right? A little bit's over here, but it's a little bit too tied to the equity market still, right? It's basically tied to equities, and it's really tied again to this spending idea, right? And in a risk taking, right? Risk taking doesn't always equal good, right? Everyone willing to take risks, that's great. It's going to fuel things, but you need to always have next month more or equal risk taking, or else things come down, right? And so, again, whether that's greater fool or whether it's that we actually have hedging or not, the hedging is an important part, because if everyone's hedging, then we can grow together, and everyone can get sort of paid together, and the risk taking is healthy, right? It's not over the top. So we'll see how these things add up. How does that lead into my new NFT horse racing? I mean, that's a different question. Let me just say, I'm over here all day, boys. And all right, first of all, so that's it, guys. That was it for the market talk. Let me tell you a little bit about, let me take a look at the profit section before I start talking about NFT horses. Holy moly, look at these numbers. C-Trader with the 937. Oh, buddy. And I saw Mosky get a 110% move on Dish. Dish definitely took off. And by the way, those were on June calls he had. So that's for everyone that was like, nah, man, I'm not buying other calls. There you go. Those are some Junes that made 110. And LSU with the 20, oh boy, the 2250 day, the EV day. That's awesome. Good job, guys. Good job, honestly. And yeah, the Dish move is that whole communications thing. We're gonna have to. Someone's gonna need to figure out get the windbreaker out, because the communication moves that we've had and sort of that whole sector is fucking a mess. It's an absolute mess, and there's obviously people that know something. So whether there's a merger coming or something, I mean, there's obviously something. There's some shakeup, because again, the prices are way too sporadic, and even the big boys moving like T and Verizon, yeah. But anyway, okay. Here, so it's a bit of a learning curve, okay? So again, that was it for the market talk. Now we talk about the real shit, because I think this is important. Just what we were just talking about, a risk taking. Everyone's willing to spend money on anything right now. But what's important to realize is the entertainment value that comes with these things. There's significant entertainment value with a lot of the NFT things, and I think the horse racing thing is a really interesting one, and it's all stats based. I love this shit. I love this shit. I can go search by the best horses out there, the Nakamoto ones. These are the rarer ones. And then I can find, there's some pretty cheap ones out here. Okay. Now, how exactly the best way to do this stuff? No one really knows the makeup of each horse, the DNA factor that makes them good or not. And you can look and go and look at some of so if we look at the cheaper ones here, you look at the winning percentages, and you can find out like the ROI on a lot of these is not very good. Look at minus 77. But this guy places pretty well. And then you can go find out his fucking parents, and you find out, okay, here's his dad, his mom, right? And you go look at the other horses, and you go look and you look and see what their numbers are, what kind of, again, what kind of bloodline and generation, and what their win rates are, and whether the horse would be good for short distance racing, long term. Okay, there's a lot of stuff, right? And so there's all these things, right? And so I'm going to basically do a bunch of analysis. Now, what I would say so far, you can go to a market and breed horses. So let's say you buy a male horse, right? You can then go to the market and have it breed with a lady horse, right? But it's cheaper if you have your own horses and you breed them together. It's like 35% discount to breed your own. So that would mean you need 2 horses. All right. So if you want let's say you want 2 of the rarer horses, but you can get a cheaper version, like a weaker version of the rare horse, it's going to cost about $1,000 for 2, is what I'm seeing. You can get it, the cheapest would be to buy, so it would be like if you want to buy the 2 cheapest of the rare horses, would be these 2. That's 0.15 and 0.15. That's how much was 0.15? It's like $700. That would be like $700 to then go breed those 2. And so that would be like the beginning start. This would be for like the top. These are like for the big races. But again, these horses suck. Like these horses suck. Like they don't win races. And so this is where I'm looking at some of these and I'm like, all right, these bad boys don't even win, right? They don't even win. And so you get into some weird. I'm like looking. I'm like, okay, if you go to 0 races, these horses that have never raced before, so you don't even get to know if all you get to go look at is their ancestry. And so some of them have really good ancestors that like are winning horses, but then this one has no they don't have any wins, no losses. And so I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy up like, you know, maybe three like 3 or 4 sets of these, like couples, 3 or 4 couples of them. These ones that have no races, that haven't raced at all, right? But that have good mamas and papas, right? I was even looking at like the least rare one. You got Kim Kardashian over here. This one right here. You got Kim Kardashian, right? Good name. No racing, but she's got some good mamas and papas. She's got like the first generation, the Genesis daddy here that has no races either. No races, right? So this is the Genesis is like the fully original and the best ones, but this is the Butterton, which is like the weakest. It's like the most common one, but it is a Genesis horse and has no wins, no races. This is a cheap horse. This one is .2. I mean, it's not cheap. It's still fucking expensive when you put it into like a dollar value, but comparatively, relatively, it's the cheap. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to take some of these weaker ones. No one knows the actual math. No, that's the funnest part, is that no one knows the actual math. If I can go, when they open up the stable thing to breed again, if I can start breeding some of these fuckers and find out what the math is real quick, like race them, I'll just pay for all the races real quick. And I can compare the difference between, there's four different types of horses. These big boys or the other ones, the price difference is not that much. It's not that much. It's really expensive for the big horses, right? Some of the better horses are what expensive. So whether you want to pay, like, think about it, some of the ones that actually have like that have actual wins and that are actually pretty good. Some of them have like an ROI of nothing, right? They don't make money. And so what's the difference between one of the horses that cost $5,000 and one that cost $500 if neither of them win, right? So maybe we could just go breed a bunch of horses and sell them anyway. So I'm going to see if there's a reason to buy a horse that actually wins or not, right? Is the idea. But yeah, I'm loving it. I think it's I think it's really cool to, you go in here and you can look at stats and you can look at their wins. Like this guy's minus 78%, but he's probably got some pretty good, he's got probably some pretty good family blood. And so there's like chances that his offspring, so like you have a horse that sucks at racing, but it might be good at breeding, and it might actually give the DNA of like the original horse that won a lot, right? And so that's sort of the kicker, is that you may, buy a horse that's not very good, but he breeds into a fucking monster, right? Kim Kardashian might give birth to Kanye over here. So, oh, this is the other guy. I have bids on. So, I have bids. Oh yeah. So my problem was, Mobsky answered, and I think that's what it was that I have to confirm my identity. But so there's like, the problem was that there's a $500 limit for transfer. So I made 4 different $500 transfers, but it cost almost $100 in the gas fees for me to fucking transfer everything. And so I was like, I could have just put $5,000. So I finally figured out I can put $5,000 as a maximum on another deposit thing from a different wallet. So I put 5,000 into another wallet, and then the gas fee is the same as just one transaction. I was like, it costs $40 for a gas fee for $500, and it's the same $40 fee for the $5,000. And I was like, okay, this is dumb as fuck. So I figured that out. So we got that going. So I can at least, pickpocket. Yeah, there's somebody like, so like this guy. I was looking at this guy. This guy's dividends, right? So dividends, look at his ROI here. 12. He's got 3 races, and look at this fucker, right? So dividends has raced 3 times and placed in 2 of them. You know, this is a pretty good bad boy right here, right? He hasn't raced much, but based on the numbers so far, but the problem is, so he's a lower breed of the rare horse, which means he's been breeded a few times with some lower quality horses. Not as big of a number, but this is a pretty good number still. I don't know the whole thing with I know Colt is a young male horse. I don't know what the differences are between like a older one and stuff, but we'll have to see what that does. But so, for instance, 0.4, that might be, this guy wants to negotiate though. So we go over there and negotiate. Some of these, it's going to take some time. But yeah, I'm addicted. I'm addicted already. I'm just already addicted. If anyone hasn't seen it, this is, again, the racing part. You can actually see your boys race. And it's pretty damn nifty. Not going to lie. What's it? So this is the lowest class of racing, class 5. So these are cheaper horses, but you find out the cheaper horses are still like $500. So each one of these is still like $400, $500. And then you're racing for, there's like an unlimited amount you can race. And so that's where it's like, I don't know how much the racing factor comes in for like a profit standpoint other than the enjoyment, the entertainment part. My big thing, I'm going to try to crunch the math real quick because I don't want to spend too much time on it. But the big thing is, do you want your guys racing nonstop and to like make money off of racing? Or do you want to just be fucking keep the numbers low to breed them for profit? That's my big question. Maybe have like 1 or 2 horses that race and the rest are just to breed from there. I have no fucking idea. Look at these guys go. Look at this shit. And the difference between like short racing and long racing, I like that. Get a horse that's good at the sprints. I'm a sprinter. What we got in here? But I was reading a guide, and someone did say, I know it's like lagging for you guys here. I did see a guide, and one of them said that you can see a big. Oh wow, see. Sometimes the replay gets fucked up on their stream too. You can actually watch your horse live and shit. These are like replays that are going through. But I was reading a thing, and apparently you can see the difference between the fucking horses racing. And so I'm not sure what the best way to go about that is, because you can't watch every fucking race here, and I don't want to. But I think I've made some screen scrapers in the past for different things for work, and so I have some confidence in myself to go. So this is for like the market. I can go screen scrape this data that comes from this thing. I can go scrape the data because there's not. See, these websites exist with the data, and you can see like, so this is the fastest horse for the shortest time frame. This guy's a fucking beast, right? And so like this guy's a monster right here, right? Okay, I'm not gonna go spend 20 grand for this. I mean, this one, I think this is like the $100,000 one. This horse is like 100 grand, right? I'm not gonna go spend 100 grand on this horse, right? So that's where you try to breed 2 horses that do 2 things very well. So if you breeded these 2 fuckers together, they'd make a mega horse that's great at sprinting. And if you breed horses that have different talents together, then it's going to be a mixed bag, right? So if you can get 2 horses that are kind of cheap but do one thing very good, which is like sprinting, you buy 2 horses for like $500 each that are both good at sprinting, and then they make a horse that produces more winnings from that sprinting thing. You can kind of create some, but these numbers, they don't exist. It's just stats, right? You don't actually get to see the attributes, right? It's not like you're playing fucking Madden and you can see how good Tom Brady is at throwing because Tom Brady's the GOAT, right? You don't get to see that, right? You just see what you just see what their name and who their ancestors are and what kind of like breed they are and shit like that, you don't get to see the stuff. So you have to do it by actual stats. So if I can like pull this data and then try to create a basically some sort of distribution of, I guess it would be really from the cost value, right? The cost, and then to find the matching pairs of what they do well together. Like it would be like sprinting. These are the most expensive races. Are these ones? The long races are like the ones that are pay the most. So we'll have to, like, this shit is insane to me. Some of this stuff, like some of these horses I saw have like made people uh like so that guy has like the fastest one and he doesn't even have a good ROI. Some of these I found had like $50,000 of winning, and there's so many. See, some of these are young; they haven't really raced much. Or like look at these guys. Some of these guys have it, when you go and look, and then you go look at like the kids, and then they don't even have very good offspring, right? But then their offspring has like it's so you can't look at the financing. The ROI not very good, but then they produce great kids or some shit. So gonna have to figure it out. But I find it really fascinating, and I like the looks of them. Right, I like the look of this shit, and it has cool music. Look at these guys go. Look at them. All right, all right, folks. That's it. I'm gonna come back with my horses tomorrow. I mean, I'm gonna post them in the chat later if I get filled on them. I do have like a bunch of negotiations going on, and some of them I DM some people on the Discord. We'll see what I get. Some big boy Tamagotchi. Hell yeah, dude. Oh yeah. If you guys want to get in on the action, let me know. Maybe we can do some cross breeding, right? Get some breeding going on. Again, it's pretty new. It's pretty new. It's very expensive. This is not like Top Shot. I'm gonna be honest with you right now. This is it. I find this to be so much. NBA Top Shot is super simple, right? You buy a pack and that's it. And some of them are not that expensive, and there's nothing else to it. This shit is extremely complicated. I'm gonna be honest with you. This shit's extremely complicated, right? Look, I still only have the first $500 in. See how it converts? I still only have $500 on this thing. I'm still waiting. That already is the most complicated thing I've had so far, is trying to figure out the fucking way to get the money in here. Because you have to convert it. I know. Okay, that already, I kind of understand the crypto stuff, but that already is a pain in the ass. So that's already more complicated. And paying for gas fees and shit, like $40 for every transaction. So that already makes it more complicated. And then there's racing, and you race them and breed them. And then there's fucking breeding. It's already so much more complicated, and it's expensive, guys. So, like, just to buy one horse is like the cheapest one right now is $400 or something. So, $300 for like a. I mean, what's the cheapest one right now? Let's see. Okay, the cheapest one. Look at, you get really cheap ones. So you can technically buy one for 0.05. But he's not going to do it. Okay, the cheapest one right now is $120. And he sucks ass. Pretty bad. So this is where it becomes, I don't know what the point of some of these guys are, other than you know, there is like, you get to learn from this. You get to learn why they're not good. And that's, I think, a big part, is you race these ones and figure out what they're not good at. And you find out what they are good at, and so that you can figure out, because no one knows the DNA yet, because it's all hidden, right? It's all hidden. So if we can figure out the actual thing, but again, it's going to cost a lot of money. It seems like, yeah, it seems like it's going to, the upfront cost is already going to be a lot more than all the others, which I think is great. You crunch the numbers, and I'll pick the ones with the funniest names. We'll compare the results. That's what I was looking at. I mean, some of them, there's these things called the coat color. That's like what the color of the actual horse is. And some of those, they don't affect the speed or anything, but it's just the look. And some of those are going for like an insane amount of money, which I find is a really weird, or it's like the rest of the NFT concept, but it makes it more interesting as well. That Yeah. And then okay, the other thing before I jump out here, the other thing is they're adding in other things like your horse can get fatigued, and so some of them will have like high fatigue, low fatigue, and that'll change up how well they can race. Some of them will have how many times they can. They're doing all kinds of weird stuff. They haven't added those things yet, but yeah, that should be interesting. See what happens there. We'll see. We'll see. Like, look at some of these recent ones. What do we got here? See, some of these guys are going for pretty cheap. Mine might be a good time guy. You guys want to get the really shitty Buttertons? I mean, they're not shitty, but they're not the good ones. See, I think I want to get only legendary. Get some legendaries and breed the legendary ones. Even if it's the lower horse and you can race them in the class 5 racing. I think that's going to be my thing. It's going to be so hard to win the high class racing ones because the people spend like 100 grand for a horse. But if you go into the lower classes, if your horse is in like class 1, based on its winning percentage, it can't race in the lower class. I could just have a little horse that can only race in the lowest class, but has the best ROI for that class, right? And I think that's the place. Min-maxing that is going to be the way to go. Get like 100 fucking horses down there and dominate that goddamn class 5 area. We're talking about the $500, $1,000 horses. You really min-max that area. And that might be these lower horses. That goes Nakamoto, Shazbo, Finney, and then Boltron. Maybe the Finneys. You find like some good Finneys that are not too expensive in here. And I think I also saw from stats already, there's only 30% of the horses are women. And you got to mate with the women. So I think the way to go is to get the fillies and the mares. You get the women horses for the mating. They're going to become, again, the supply is only going up a consistent amount based on the breeding part. Everyone's going to need the ladies. Everyone wants the ladies, right? These are going to be the ones that go after. Some of the ladies have men's names too, which is great. Yeah, I'm enthralled, guys. I'm excited. See if we get some horses going. Anyways, I will see you guys in the morning. Enjoy your afternoon, your evening, wherever you are. And until next time, I'll see you on the track. Hey, good time. Good job trading, guys. Good job. The market went up. Good job. That matters too. See ya.